We certainly are happy to share our experiences in how we look at foreign exchange and how we leverage the FiREapps technology. Itron is the global leader in creating smart grid solutions for the utility industry. So we focus on manufacturing electric, gas, and water meters and sell those to the utilities globally, and then also developing software and communication solutions to collect that information. We operate in 40-plus countries around the world, and we had revenue in 2011 of about $2.4 billion. I think one of the things that's unique about Itron is that all of our subsidiaries are local currency functional, so that creates a lot of exposure on the balance sheet, given the countries that we're operating in, especially in emerging markets. Itron expanded from what had been really a North America focused company in 2007 to being a global company when they acquired Acteris, which was a leading meter manufacturing and smart grid solutions company whose business was international. So that's what really launched us into being an international, multinational company. And we had a significant growth in our foreign exchange exposure through that acquisition. What's unique about that is, and challenging, very challenging, is that currently our international subsidiaries operate on an ERP system called MFG Pro, and we actually have a distinct instance for each subsidiary. So we have over close to 70 instances of MFG Pro used across the company, all with their own unique chart of accounts. So that is a challenge on the data management side. And then prior to deploying FiREapps, we hedged our balance sheet exposure for a limited number of currencies that were reflected within our Oracle ERP system. At the time, Oracle was our ERP system used in the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, and with MFG being used internationally. We actually are on a 2-year project to migrate all of our subsidiaries to a single global instance of Oracle, which we're looking forward to. But the challenge was really the number of entities, being able to normalize our exposures across from all those different systems, and making sure that we were getting the information timely and accurately, so that we could then expand our hedging program. So, and then one of the things we looked at was really, should we go down the path of having our subsidiaries input their exposure into a template, which could then be uploaded into a system, or should we look at automating the extraction directly from their GL and feeding it into an exposure analysis system, which is ultimately why we chose the FiREapps solution. 2 main inputs into our exposure. We have our general ledger from Oracle, which is still primarily focused on North America, and we leverage the FiREapps Oracle toolkit to run the query and extract that data that we load into FiREapps on a weekly basis. And then we feed in a GL extract that is run against all of our instances of MFG Pro. We actually then take those 2 data sets through the FiREapps technology and combine it with a mapping system that we have to our consolidation system, which is called FDM, which ultimately feeds into Hyperion, and it normalizes all those individual GL accounts across all those individual subsidiaries to a normalized chart of accounts. And we do that through the FiREapps transform technology that's been created for us. And then we have which then allows us the ability to look at our exposures in aggregate, as well as drill down through exposures by currency, subsidiary, and then all the way down to account type. So we categorize all of our accounts by type. And then if needed, we can go all the way down to the individual GL account level. So which is helpful in the fact that when we were first starting this program up 3 years ago, we had a number of data issues that had to be resolved. And so we can drill down through and then have meaningful conversations with talking about distinct accounts and account balances with the finance contacts in our respective subsidiaries. We also feed in what we call manual exposures for a few of our subsidiaries that are not on Oracle or MFG, and their exposure is pretty de minimis in nature, but we want to have a complete and accurate picture of our global exposure. And then we also feed in forecast adjustments for transactions that Treasury is directly managing. So if we know we're making certain transactions in the upcoming month that are going to affect our exposure, then we will layer those in to our exposure set that we ultimately hedge at the beginning of the period with. And then we trade on the FXall trading platform. And then we also feed those trades back into FiREapps so that we can overlay our hedges versus our exposures and see if we have any material changes and monitor the hedge coverage versus the exposures. What my observation is that the various TMS vendors can support your FX exposure to the extent that you know what it is in your source systems and you upload it either through a template or manually input it into their system. And they assume that you're going to load all that exposure in at a summary level, either a summary transaction currency pair level or potentially transaction currency by entity. But what they all lack is the ability to automate that from your source systems, i.e. your ERP systems, into their systems. And so they stand there with the catcher's mitt saying, just feed us the data, but they don't go beyond that saying to help you get the data. And so that's where FiREapps is very, very helpful for us in that the fact that it's pulling the data from all those source systems, aggregating it, allowing us to do the drill down and deep dive analytics all the way, drilling down all the way to the individual account level if we need, and looking at our trends. And then we then just feed the summary exposure into this case reval, but you would have to do that in any case with a TMS system, because I'm not aware of any that are have the capability and functionality that FiREapps provides to the marketplace. So one of the things that we leverage within FiREapps is the FX gain loss report and analytics, and that forms the basis of our own developed FX decomposition model that we've created, looking at what are the drivers of our foreign exchange gain loss on a monthly basis. And so we take that FiREapps FX gain loss report and feed it into this Excel model. But really what we're trying to do is understand what are all the drivers that are impacting our FX line, and really, focus in on the areas that we need to improve upon or that we need to tighten up as far as process or come up with other risk mitigation processes around that. And so really we look at things on a currency pair basis. And we actually have the ability through this model to drill down and look at each side of that currency pair, because we have a lot of cross exposure. It's not one-sided. And so we want to be able to understand, which subsidiary is it coming from, which transaction types, and ultimately, in some cases, we can drill down and understand the individual transactions. But what we look at is what is the expected gain loss on the exposure? What was the actual gain loss on the hedge? And then what is the difference between those two? And then we're trying to understand, okay, what were the drivers? And this is all tying back to our overall P&L from the ERP system. So we tie back everything to what was reported in our financials. Then we break it out into understanding what are we spending in forward points and for which currencies. What was the impact of the mark-to-market on our new hedges that we put on at the end of the month for the upcoming month? And so what were the drivers around that? And then what were our total gain-loss results? Then we look at, in our hedging effectiveness, understanding what was the drivers from differences, what we call notional differences, or the impact of being over, under, or unhedged. What was the impact in having rate differences when we traded and when we closed out our hedges versus when we set our balance sheet rates? And then we have a few things that are kind of unique to our process, which we call closing out our hedges in transaction currency. What is the impact of having translation rate difference. We use, for consolidation, we use an average rate at consolidation. And so there's a slight impact from that. And then we have some just kind of unexplained and rounding differences. So we really try and drill through and understand, and this helps us really focus in on what are the areas that are meaningful, causing us the most volatility, so that we can focus our efforts on that, because we do have limited staff and limited time to be working on this. In our perspective, none of them that we're aware of, I should say that the ones that we're aware of, are focusing on the exposure extract and analysis. And there's very limited, or in most cases, no support on FX gain loss analysis and understanding really what's driving it, and then how do you then take that and say, what are we going to focus on to improve and lower our volatility? So we've been a FiREapps user for close to 3 years now on the balance sheet side of things, and then I would say we're also in the process of implementing FiREapps for the revenue and expense side of the equation, so that we can use that for development of our cash flow hedging program. But what FiREapps has allowed us to do is automate, obviously, that aggregation and normalization, which is really key, of all those balances, those non-functional balances across all of our subsidiaries and ERP systems, into a nice common view of our exposure. And then we look at our exposure, what did we load and what did we hedge, monitor it weekly, and then where did we end up at month end with our month end actuals. And so that process is very fast and just takes not a lot of time to manage that data. We can look at trend analysis and drill down. So one of the things that causes us the most pain is the effect of being over under hedged, because our subsidiary exposures can change pretty dramatically month over month or intra-month. And so we leverage extensively the exposure trend report, and we send that out to our subsidiaries and the subsidiary controllers, and we can have really great discussions with them saying, this is your exposure, this is what we hedged, this is where you ended up, this is what this change meant to our P&L, and please help us understand what's driving that, and how can we have a better process in partnering with you to forecast what those balances and transactions are going to be, so that we're hedging to a better number. And so that having that level of detail and on that extended time horizon is quite helpful. The ability to upload our hedges back into the system just ensures that we're not ending up significantly off in our hedge coverage. And then the FX gain loss analytics and report out of FiREapps forms the basis of our whole decomposition process.